Okay, so thank you very much for joining me today. And we're going to talk about snagging and the rules and regulations that are now going to be coming into effect in the coming period. There's quite significant changes taking place in the world of snagging. It's quite important what's going on. Hopefully this will give you the sort of background to how we've achieved where we are and what the future looks like. So I'm Alan Milstein. I'm chairman of the Residential Property Surveyors Association. I'll give you my contact details so you can contact me directly if you've got any questions. So do feel free to put questions in the chat. I'll deal with them at the end. I'll go through them. As I say, no private messages in the chat, please, just public ones. So for those of you that are not familiar with RPSA, it was formed in 2010. So we're quite a young organisation. It is a representative association for independent residential surveyors and nothing more. We're not commercial, we're not corporate or anything like that. We're not global. It's very much, does what it says in the tin. RPSA is a not-for-profit organisation. It's set up as a limited company, limited by guarantee. And there's three full-time executive directors, myself and my colleagues Jerry Quinnell and Andy McColl, who many of you will have come across in previous events. There's a council of 8 of us who help shape the direction of the RPSA, so that it's a democratically run organisation. Now we're currently at around 700 members, and we're growing rapidly. In fact, looking back, even as recently as 2020, early 2020, we were about 200 members, and we've grown really significantly in that time. And I think the reason for that is that we are very relevant to the needs of independent residential surveyors today. And I think that perhaps people have found they weren't finding those needs being met by perhaps some other organisations. As an association, we have 5 key objectives. I think the first one is creating an increased demand for surveys. So that's growing the pie of surveys. So just more work for everybody. And we're not growing as a population of surveyors, but by growing the pie, it means we can all be busy, which is really what we want to be. Raising surveying quality standards, and certainly when I first came into this industry, which was in the early 2000s, I was quite surprised how poor some of the standards were in surveying. So it's very much an objective of the RPSA to raise surveying standards and to set ourselves at the top of that standard pile. Primarily, we're about supporting the careers and businesses of independent surveyors. Being an independent is quite a lonely business sometimes, and having somebody there to help support you and help provide the mechanism and the needs that you have as you build your business is really important. And we want to try and help you build your business, for your own benefits. Driving products and markets is really important. I think the surveying world has stagnated somewhat over the last few years, and what we're trying to do is open it up and find new ways and new opportunities to sell more people, more surveys. And trust me, there are many opportunities coming down the line. We're talking with a lot of different people about how to place surveys in new parts of the market that we haven't previously tapped. And there's a lot of other things going on in our industry which we're working on as well. Fundamentally, it's about delivering better advice to consumers when they need it. We only exist as an industry to provide advice for our customers. That's the only reason we do what we do. And so delivering better advice to our customers in a better way is what matters more than anything. And that's really what is fundamental to what we do. We've had some very notable achievements in recent times. So in November 2020, we released the RPSA Survey Inspection and Reporting Standards, and they are the highest industry standards for condition surveys in our industry. And we're very proud of the fact that we sit at the top of that tree, and we set the standards above anybody else in our industry. We've also created the first standards for new build snagging, and that ties into what we're talking about today. There were no standards, we created standards. We've also delivered the only clear guidance for surveyors on how to report on spray foam insulation in lofts of residential property. We recently conducted a joint project with Property Care Association, and we've now delivered to our members very clear guidance. And spoiler alert, it's not good news. We are the key surveying contributor to the Home Buying and Selling Group. The Home Buying and Selling Group is the primary stakeholder group which advises government on how to improve the home buying and selling process, and is the industry conduit to government in this regard. And RPSA is, if you like, the default surveying contributor to that group. It includes all the other major organizations within that group, but it is RPSA that really sort of is driving a lot of the surveying matters there. And I think the jewel in our crown is our unique panel. So we receive survey instructions, which we offer out to our members. Last year we put more than £1 million into the pockets of our members. I know of no other professional association that puts so much more back into the pockets of its members than it takes out. So I think we're very proud of that. It's all about, for us, it's about offering benefits to members, because, that's why we exist. We only exist to support our members and offer them benefits. So things like terms and conditions, which certainly, if you're in the surveying world, you'll know what heart versus large means. But after that, we had to look again at the terms and conditions we use, our contract with our customer. And so we went to the leading law firm in the country on surveying matters to get bespoke terms and conditions created. RPSA paid for that, but it's open there for all of our members to be able to use. We are looking at professional indemnity insurance and how we can get better deals for our members. And it's fair to say that probably RPSA surveyors pay the lowest professional indemnity insurance premiums of any group of surveyors. We have a very comprehensive code of conduct which really details the professional standards that you as a member need to adhere to. But we take the view that it's not for us to come after you with a cost trying to clobber you all the time. It's about demonstrating what you need to do to be professional, and for you to recognize that you need to do those things. We set RPSA out as a quality brand mark so that from the consumer's point of view, they know that if they see RPSA on your business card, on your website, or on your social media, they know that they're going to get a quality service and a quality product. And we all share in that, and we all benefit from that message that goes out to all our consumers. We're very innovative when it comes to products and software. So we're always looking at new ways of doing things, new types of products, new surveys that we can introduce into the market. And most of all, a sense of community. So whether it's through our social media channels or whether it's through our meet and greet events, do go and check out our events page on the RPSA website. We've got meet and greet events coming up in Chester on the 13th of June and in Penrith on the 14th of June. So if you're in anywhere near those areas, come along, have a drink with us, just come and have a chat. But that's all about community. So what is it that makes RPSA work? Well, I think there's three things really. Creativity. We're constantly looking at new ways of offering survey products into the market, to create that bigger pie of work for all of us. Flexibility. What we don't do is think of an idea and then spend 3 years in consultation about it. We get things done. We're flexible because we are perhaps a smaller organization, and we're able to make things happen very quickly. And a very clear focus on and who we represent. We represent independent residential surveyors. We're not corporate, we're not global, we're not looking at any of those things. We are looking at our very particular marketplace of our community of surveyors, and we can therefore really support those people in a very targeted way. As surveyors, we do not work in isolation, and what we're going to talk about today in a short while is very much the part of a collaboration between many of these people, and these are all organizations that we communicate with on a daily basis. As surveyors, we don't work in isolation. We are part of a process, of a much bigger process that we fit into, and therefore it's really important that we understand what all these organizations do and how what we do relates to what they do. And it's only by talking to them and by working with them, which is what we do on a regular basis. This is how I spend a lot of my time, is in meetings and and forums and so on with people like these in order to make sure that we can be as relevant as possible, and to make sure that everybody here is saying surveys are a great idea and RPSA surveys are a great idea. If you want to be a member, or if you are a member, so we can understand the membership grades, full members. So that would be somebody who is already perhaps, if you want to join us, you're already a member of CABE or CIOB, RICS, or you've got a diploma in home inspection or diploma in residential surveying or building surveying degree. So equivalent to a level 6 kind of qualification, that would be full membership. What may be relevant to many of the snagging practitioners who are with us today is that if you haven't got the qualifications for full membership, then if you've got an MVQ level 3 in a related qualification, then that would be a technical level membership. We have a student level membership for those who are studying on a diploma in residential surveying or building surveying degree, and we have an affiliate membership for firms. So if full or technical membership is £180 a year, it's free for students, it's £500 a year for affiliate firms. For full and technical members, we don't differentiate, we don't have different levels of membership fee, because in our world, everybody is an equal member, and everybody has a fair and equal say in what goes on. And we don't think it's right that one person, because they're older or wiser, should pay more or less or whatever. And I'm a big fan of keep it simple. Okay, so what are we here for today? We're here to talk about snagging. Well, what's the story? What are we going to talk about? Well, there's been a lot of changes, and there are going to be some really, really significant changes taking place in the world of snagging. Now, I'm going to sort of talk about timelines, because I think it really helps to appreciate how things have reached where they are today. And we've reached a very particular point today, which has come about through a series of events that have happened. But if we take ourselves back to a time when none of us had even heard of the word COVID, we didn't know what wearing a face mask was like. It's difficult to imagine now, isn't it? But back in mid-2019, we started to recognize that there were some issues in the world around snagging. I was having members coming to me saying, we want to do snagging surveys, but what do we do? There's no industry standards. And frankly, is that we've had standards in surveying for many, many years, but no one's thought to create standards for snagging. And I just found that sort of quite remarkable, really, that no one had thought to do that. But it meant, of course, that nobody really knew what to do, and everybody doing snagging was doing something different. And not unreasonably, perhaps, as a result of that, I think, or as a large part, is that house builders were often very obstructive to surveyors. And I certainly was having members coming to me saying that they were point blank being refused access to a property to carry out a snagging inspection. And that's just plain wrong, because, from the consumer's point of view, that they have an absolute right, surely, to have an independent assessment of the quality of that property. But frankly, they were not being allowed. Also, if you cast your mind back to that period, we had a lot of quality problems in the new build sector, and you probably saw the stories about Persimmon, particularly at that time, were in the news every day, weren't they? So it was, there was a lot of things going on here. But what it meant was that we had something of a wild west of an unregulated snagging industry. That's not to say that snagging practitioners were no good. It's just say that nobody knew what they were supposed to be doing, because everybody's doing something different. So, and I've just seen something pop up there from Louisa saying refused access a week before completion of a new build only 4 weeks ago. This is all changing. This is all changing. So, yeah, that's the sort of thing that has been happening. But I say that there's a lot of good snagging practitioners out there, but unfortunately, everyone's being lumped into the same boat and this sort of unregulated pot. Now, I thought was really interesting, looking back at some of the information here. Now, the Home Builders Federation, and bear in mind, the Home Builders Federation is the house builders' own trade association. They own it and run it and pay for it. It is their own. So it makes me smile when I go past the site and it says HBF 5-star award. Well, hang on, they've awarded it to themselves, but anyway, but they do an annual home customer satisfaction survey, and no disrespect to the HBF, they do try to, I think, do a very good job. And I think in the main that my experience is that most builders want to do a good job, but as we can clearly see, some don't. But the Home Builders Federation Customer Satisfaction Survey for that period said that 97% of respondents said they'd reported snags. So here's the House Builders own trade association saying that 97% of their customers are unhappy, which is pretty remarkable, isn't it? Now, I know I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek there because when they look at satisfaction and so on, most people are reasonably happy, but everybody did have faults. So it's interesting that they are reporting that. Now let's look at the timeline also in other factors. So sadly, I'm sure we all remember the Grenfell Tower tragedy in 2017, and there can be nothing good in a tragedy like that. However, what has transpired as a result of that is a lot of changes which will make a lot of other people's lives better. So, we never obviously want something like that to happen, but having happened, let's make some good out of it. And I think there is some good that has come out of it, which I think we can, we will have to say is something positive. But as a result of that, we had the Dame Judith Hackett independent review of building regulations and fire safety in May 2018. Now, what that resulted in July 2020 was the issuing of the draft building safety bill. And that really was looking at building regulations and fire safety. Now, that bill, and for those that say, oh, governments never do anything, well, do you know what? We had the draft bill in July 2020, and 3 weeks ago, that bill got royal assent. It is now law. So in less than 2 years, for a really complex bill, is something pretty remarkable. So, but just remember that sort of timeline, really, that July 20 for the draft building safety bill. So we're going to look now at some of the aspects of that as far as it relates to us. And the draft building safety, or the building safety bill is as it is now. It's not a draft anymore. It has 6 parts. Now, just take note of the fact that 5 of those parts deal with building safety and building regulations, the implementation and the interpretation of building regulations. And that's a very, very important point. But the bit that affects us is part 5, which is the establishment of the new Homes Ombudsman Scheme. Now, again, up till now, there's not been any sort of ombudsman for new homes, which again is quite surprising. I've highlighted and underlined there some words because they are quite relevant. Because what it says in the Building Safety Bill is the Secretary of State must make arrangements for there to be a scheme which meets the conditions. Right. So a scheme that's open to all, it is open to all developers, enables relevant owners to have complaints against members investigated and other things. So, and the scheme is to be known as the New Homes Ombudsman Scheme. Now, what's important there is that the Secretary of State must make arrangements. And so that doesn't mean to say that the government has to set this up, but they must make arrangements to get it set up. And that is what's happened. And then that the scheme is open to all developers. It doesn't say all developers must join, because I think what the government are looking for here is for industry to say, we're going to police ourselves rather than suffer regulation by government, because if it's regulation by government, it will be much stricter and much more onerous on the developers. So it's up to the developers to play ball, or they'll get the ball taken away and they'll get a ball which is not really the right shape for them. What the Building Safety Bill also says is the Secretary of State may, right, by regulation, require persons who are developers to become members of the New Homes Ombudsman Scheme, and B, require them to become members, remain members for a period of time, a specified period of time. So again, the Secretary of State has the option to instigate these requirements if he so chooses, or she so chooses. The Building Safety Bill is written in such a way that all the opportunity is there if industry doesn't play ball. Now, it talks about a developer. So who is a developer? And again, this is a really important point here is a developer is a person who undertakes or commissions the construction of a new building that is to consist of or contain a home, and the conversion of an existing building so that it can consists of or contains a home, or the conversion of a building into a number of homes. So, if you think about it, though, the construction of a home, so this would include a self-builder, for instance, because they would be then a developer under that definition. Now, but then it says in that last line there, provision may be made by virtue of subsection 1, may provide for exceptions. So this means then that the scheme can say, okay, look, there's no point in a self-builder having to be part of a new homes ombudsman scheme to complain against themselves. So, well, that would seem pointless. Or maybe a very small builder or something. It is still to be decided. And one thing to remember in all of this we're talking about is that we are today at a starting point with this, and that it is all under review all of the time, and that there will be some changes that come along in this whole sort of scheme, which will tweak it in order to make it more viable. Now, I've got another timeline for you. So just to think back what I said a couple of slides ago, that in mid-2019, we recognized there was no standards. We had this Wild West industry. We had lots of complaints. And so I thought, well, okay, how do we create some standards for snagging? Because that seemed to be the best starting point. Let's create some standards that everyone can work to. And so I went along to the Home Builders Federation. So prior to August, actually, it was about mid-2019, I went to the Home Builders Federation and said, look, I think standards, some snagging standards would be a great idea, because then all your members would know what we're doing and they would be happy to let us on site. And so they sort of and did that for a few months. And in the end, I thought, well, no, this is not happening, is it? So we've got some contacts at the Ministry of Housing. So I emailed them and said, I'd like to think about doing some snagging standards. Is this something that would be of interest? And they said, can you come and see us next week? And so I went and had a meeting with the new build department at Ministry of Housing, and they said, fantastic, yeah, we'd love to see some standards in snagging. How can we help you? So I said, well, I think the best thing is, we want to do this in collaboration with the whole industry. So let's try and bring together a stakeholder group to talk about this, and we can work out the best way. And so what came out of that meeting was in October 2019, we had the first stakeholder work group meeting. And basically we had, well, I'm justifiably proud, I think, of the fact that the RPSA created the biggest and widest industry stakeholder group that's ever been put together in the world of new build. And it included everybody who had any influence, knowledge, say, input into new builds. So we had lenders, we had warranty providers, we had lawyers, we had builders, we had snagging providers, we had warranty providers, we had professional associations, ourselves and Ricks and Cabe and all SEAT, and all these people all came and sat round the table. We asked them to come, and RPSA asked them to come and sit round the table, and they did. And in fact, it was an RICS table, because we borrowed the big boardroom at RICS, and I think we had about 40 people in there. So it was incredibly successful. And I think what it showed was that there was a very great need for this process to happen. To cut a very long story short, over a period of a couple of years, and of course, we had a sort of a bit of a hiatus in the middle with COVID, and that stopped things for a little while. But we kept at it, and we set up a stakeholder group and a technical working group, and I've said it there, including NHQB, and we'll come back to them in a minute, the New Homes Quality Board. But what that ended up with in January 2022 was the final sign-off for a pre-completion inspection checklist. And I'll explain more about that in a moment. But it's really nice, to start off, there we were in August 2019 saying we'd like to create some standards for snagging. And 2.5 years later, we did it. And, it's as with anything, there's always some compromises and so on, but we got there, and we got there with the agreement of the entire industry. And I think that was one of our proudest moments as RPSA, that we were able to achieve that with such a wide consensus of agreement across the industry. Now, We talked about the New Homes Ombudsman scheme that the Secretary of State was setting up. Well, that's been done. And the first registrations are starting around now. And we expect the first activations, because when a builder registers for the New Homes Ombudsman scheme, there's a period then where they have to change all their systems. And believe me, they are having to change all their systems. This is a major, major piece of work as far as builders are concerned. That the whole relationship of how they sell houses is changing. And so it's going to take a period before those companies are activated. So my understanding is that the first, I think, 15 major builders have been invited to register for the scheme. They'll be going through that process over the next few months. And then during that time as well, the next tranche of, I think, 30 or 40 builders will be invited to join the scheme, and they'll be activated. So this is going to be a sort of an ongoing process over the next few months. Now, do you remember, if we go back to our timeline, if you remember, the draft building safety bill was presented in July 2020. Now, somebody must have known what was going to be in there, mustn't they? Because in May 20, so just a couple of months before the draft building safety bill was presented, we had the formation of the New Homes Quality Board. Why was that created? Well, it was created to oversee the composition and appointment of a permanent board, for the completion, consultation on adoption of a new comprehensive and robust industry code of practice that will place more stringent requirements on all parties involved in the construction inspection. And that's not just inspection, that's inspection during the build and after the build. That's where we come in. So our bit in this is referenced all the way through this whole scheme. And and please don't underestimate how important our bit of this really is to the whole process, the sale and aftercare, and also agree the process to appoint a New Homes Ombudsman service. Now, so we had in the draft building safety bill, when it came out a couple of months later, that the Secretary of State has got to make the arrangements for a New Homes Ombudsman scheme. And here we see, already set up, ready for that, is the process to do it. And again, I would say that it's quite unusual when we can tick all those three boxes. There is a new board, and you can go to the New Homes Quality Board website and you can see who the board are. There is a new code of practice, and you can go to the New Homes Quality Board website and see that code of practice. And there is a New Homes Ombudsman who has been appointed. So the New Homes Quality Board will be guided by the principles of independence, transparency, and integrity, and will contain a mix of representatives of consumer bodies, house builders, warranty providers, lenders, independents. Such it will not be dominated in any one group. And you can go to the New Homes Quality Board website at hqb.org.uk, I think it is, and see exactly who's on the board and everything. So, it has been done. It's all done. And it's nice to be able to say to you, that what you're seeing now, it's done, it's finished. The boxes have been ticked. It's going ahead. It's happening. This is not pie in the sky. And here's just a little summary of the sort of the two strands of timing that went on in the background. And when we look at that sort of period in August, October 2019, at that point, there wasn't a New Homes Quality Board. What we were doing in terms of setting up the snagging standards was entirely separate. And it was only then during 2020 that the New Homes Quality Board sort of was formed, and that we were able then, coming into, during that process, that development process, come together with the New Homes Quality Board, so that what we did as creating those snagging standards, our pre-completion inspection, could be included within the new code of practice, which from our point of view means that it's recognized that what we're doing is going to fit into the whole process of buying a new home. So in coming now into 2022, we've got those initial New Homes Ombudsman Scheme registrations in now, April, June, May, June 22. We have the first completed activations certainly by October, if not before. We're expecting a sort of public launch of the scheme in October, and then during late, autumn into spring next year will be the first homes completed under the scheme. It's important to say none of this scheme is retrospective. This will only be effective once a builder is activated on the New Homes Ombudsman scheme, which we expect to be later on this year. So, having said that, we've already got builders saying to us, well, they really like what we're doing here and they'd actually like to get started sooner. So I think there's a good opportunity to get things going sooner. So we're going to look now a little bit about the new code of practice, which is quite important, because you'll notice from that graphic, and I have to say, I think it's a really, really clever graphic, because if you look at each of those little points, the fairness and the safety, and there's a little arrow pointing towards the middle, and what's in the middle is the customer. And what's changed in the world of new build is that the customer is now the center of the story, and that everything else must be fitted around the customer rather than the customer having to fit around the builder. Now, the changes here are so widespread and so significant, it is going to take a little while for it to really sort of kick in and for everybody to get used to it, because it's such a big change, and people have been using the same sort of unhelpful practices in many ways for too long, and it's going to take a little while for that to kick in. But it's there, it's happening, and everybody knows that we have to work at it to get it all underway. But we've now got a single code of practice, which I think there was 7 different codes. Each warranty provider had a separate code before, so it's mad. I mean, it was just everybody was doing something different in the world of new build. So much like, there was no real standards for snagging, there was no real standards for building either. Well, now everybody's got to do the same thing. The code is effective during the first 2 years of ownership. And it, the code gives is the ultimate right for somebody to go to the New Homes Ombudsman, but it's in that first 2 years of ownership before the warranty kicks in. But these are often the silly problems that causes a lot of angst for people. We do expect that all developers should be applying to join the scheme by the end of this year. So it is happening, and I think there'll be some bad apples. There always are, but they'll be forced eventually. Now, currently excluded from the scope of the code is shared ownership property and buy to let. So if you are buying to let, then it would be excluded. I don't quite understand why they should be excluded, and I think that will change. Loss of property value, I'm not quite sure where that's relevant and why it's relevant. It's written in the code, so I've put it there. So I don't really know. And Northern Ireland is currently excluded. This does cover England, Wales and Scotland at the moment, because in Scotland, although the house buying selling process is different, the new build bit, apart from the missives or something, apparently is pretty much the same. And Peter, I know Peter Cole is with us in Northern Ireland. All I can say to you is get yourselves a government, and this can be put in place. At the moment, it's kind of stalled. Everything is in place to make it effective in Northern Ireland, and it will be effective in Northern Ireland. But there needs to be a government there so that it can be put through. I don't know the actual machinations, but it will happen. Now, what does the code say? Let's look at some of the terminology used in the code, and these are really very clear. And the code has gone through. If you go on the website, you'll see in the tab at the top of the page on the code, it says Crystal version, and that's because the text has gone through the sort of plain English campaign crystal mark, and so it's really clear for people. When selling a new home, developers should give fair and complete information about the property. They must not give misleading information or use high pressure sales tactics. So this is specified in the code. Customers must be able to choose their own legal, and other advisors to guide them through the buying process, and developers must be clear about any fees or benefits they receive. So, giving the customer clear choice. Now, this is the bit that is important for us, the completion. Now, just so you're aware that what tends to happen with new build is that once the build is finished, the builder will serve a notice to complete on the buyer. That notice to complete goes to the solicitor, and that's the trigger to draw down the funds for the purchase. So you get notice to complete and then purchase completion, and there has been as little as 1 or 2 days between notice to complete when the house is finished and the actual completion, because particularly at the end of the month or the end of the quarter when the builder wants his money in, then they've been pushing to get that done. Now it says now the completion notice period, which is this period between notice complete and purchase completion, is usually expected to be at least 14 calendar days, 2 weeks. This is a monumental change for the builders. Why have they done that? They've done it to make sure there's enough time for us to do our survey, our snagging inspection. Well, suddenly, you know, they're not going to turn around and say, well, you can't do it, there's no time. You know, no, we've got 2 weeks between notice complete and purchase completion, unless people agree otherwise, right? And bear in mind, people mustn't be put under pressure. We've got 2 weeks to do this now. But to avoid doubt, pre-completion inspection checklist is not intended to delay or prevent completion, but the developer must respond to the results of the inspection. So, you know, it says in the code, the builder has got to take note of your snagging inspection. He's got to listen to that. You know, so it's really clear, you know, there's no ambiguity here, there's no doubt. The developer must make sure that. Now, one of the questions that came up while we were discussing all this was whether it was necessary for a surveyor to have a CSCS or other site safety card before they go on site to prove they're working under health and safety regulations. Now, we did explore this in depth. We went to CSCS and they said, no, they withdrew the card. There was a card that was relevant to surveyors in the past. They've withdrawn that because what they say now is that as a professional surveyor, it is expected that you would have sufficient knowledge to do a risk assessment and to be safe on site, and you would recognize any risks that might be present. So there's no need for you to have a CSS card or anything like that. You can go on site, and bear in mind, we are only doing these inspections on a complete home. That home must be complete, finished, done. There's no more work to do, done. So we're not going on to an active building site, other than the fact that around us may be an active site, but where the property we're visiting and almost certainly the access to that property must be finished. So the developer's got to make sure that the site meets all relevant health and safety. It can refuse to give the customer or representative or professional, that's us, access if they don't take health and safety precautions the developer has told them they must take. They can't refuse you access, but they can ask you to wear a hard hat. Okay, so we can only do this on a complete new home. So the builder has to give us access to a complete new home. And the code specifies what a complete home is. And basically, it's one where it's in a finished condition for the purpose that it was intended for. Now, there can be some minor work still outstanding. So if there's some minor decorative works, well, this might be things that we identify specifically. There could be some shared areas. So the access roads or parks or something like that might not be finished. And there may be that the site has not been put onto permanent utilities and it's on temporary utilities, but it's unlikely that that's going to be the case. Now, you'll notice this page, I'll just flick back to that previous page, and it says if the new home is a house, and we'll just go here, if the new home is an apartment or flat. There are two pre-completion inspections, one for houses and one for apartments and flats. And the only difference is that for apartments and flats, there's reference to shared areas. And basically what we will inspect are those shared areas which are relevant to our specific property. So just the corridor leading to our property, not all the corridors in the whole block. Okay, so this is a requirement on the builder, on the developer. At the point of completion, the developer must have done the following: given the customer the opportunity to inspect the new home or appoint a suitably qualified inspector to carry out a pre-completion inspection. Now, the question that we asked there is, oh, hang on a minute, does that mean that the customer can do their own snagging inspection? Because it says give the customer the opportunity to inspect the new home. And the answer to your question is an emphatic no. It does not give the customer the opportunity or right to carry out his own snagging inspection. And I've questioned the New Homes Quality Board on this, and they're very clear about this. And we'll see as we go on that it's made clear. And of course, the reason is that for a firstly, the customer, the person buying the house, they've got their vested interest because obviously they're emotional about it because they're home, but also because we are used to doing inspections and therefore we do it in this methodical way. And I think from the builder's point of view, they want us doing it because they know that we're going to do it in that consistent way, and we're not going to be asking stupid things. Which, if a customer did it themselves, they would almost certainly be asking for stuff which is unreasonable in many cases. And the developer then has to put things right. So the developer must acknowledge any snags. So he's got to take account of your report, and he's got 30 days from you getting your report to put it right. And if he doesn't, the customer can, they can go through the after sales service, and they then can make a formal complaint under the developer's complaints procedure or go to the ombudsman. So it's really clear. Again, he's got 30 days to put it right. But from the builder's point of view, again, I think they will think this is wonderful because we go in there, we give them the list of all the things that's wrong. They go in one day, put it all right, and then get out of there and move on. That they don't want to hang around. They want to get on to the next development. So actually, from the builder's point of view, this is very positive. And what we've found, the reaction we've found from builders so far is actually that they really like this whole idea. The visit by the customer or their representative. Now, I'll just come back actually, because if you notice on the top of this page, it says the code of practice. Now, the next page says developer guidance. And as we have with building regulations, for instance, you get the building regulation, and then you get the approved document which explains it. So the developer guidance here explains, for the benefit of the developer, what was really meant by the code of practice. And what it says to the developer is that the visit by the customer or their representative to undertake a pre-completion inspection of the new home should be arranged by appointment between the parties from 5 calendar days after the notice to complete has been served. So what it means is that the builder then serves the notice to complete on the customer who's buying the house. They've then got that period of 5 days where they can go and find their snagging practitioner, instruct you. You can make the appointment. Remember, we've got 14 days in that whole period. So you can make your appointment. You go in a few days later, you do your inspection, you submit your report. Builder's got 30 days to put it right. So there's a whole sequence of events that's going. But the important thing is here, this is all specified to the developer. You've got to do this. You can't avoid it. You've got to do it. The developer should not prevent or deny customers the opportunity to inspect the new home prior to completion, and should provide the customer with reasonable time to do it. And the customer may wish for a suitably qualified inspector to represent them to inspect the new home. Now, as I've said, there is no specific provision for the customer, the buyer, to carry out their own snagging inspection. The builder does not have to let them do that. They can visit the home to go and look around it, which is fine, and work out where their sofa is going to go and measure up for the curtains. They can do all that, but it's not intended that they do their own pre-completion snagging inspection. Now, it says the customer may wish for a suitably qualified inspector. What is a suitably qualified inspector? Well, a suitably qualified inspector must be a member of a recognized professional association undertaking surveying services in the residential housing sector. So a suitably qualified inspector is not a member of the Institute of Marketing, right? Because that's not an organization which is undertaking surveying services in the residential housing sector. Now, when we were going through the work group and technical work group stage, we thought we've got to be inclusive. And because you notice it just says there, and this is taken directly from the guidance, and all it says in the guidance, exactly what you see there, e.g. RICS, RPSA, when etc. Now, when we were developing all this through the work groups, we came up with a longer list, and I'll show you that list in a few moments, of other organizations as well, where we thought that somebody who is a member of one of those organizations would be, would have the ability to undertake a pre-completion inspection. But the guidance only says that you can see exactly there. And so there is no other list anywhere in the documentation. We did the list when we created it, we put it into a separate document, which was into a terms of reference, but that's not been included anywhere. So your guess is as good as mine, but at the moment, all it says is Rixon RPSA. That's all it says. So you've got to be a member of one of those, or you will not be able to do a snagging inspection. You must hold relevant PI. And at the moment, an awful lot of snagging practitioners do not have PI. Only work within their competency. So, for example, RPSA, we have created a new technical membership level. So for somebody, as we saw earlier, somebody who has a level 3 qualification perhaps in site management or something like that, but it's a related activity, they can join RPSA as a technical member, so they are part of a recognized professional association. But if, for example, you hold a level 3 energy qualification in energy assessment, that would not make you competent. You could still join RPSA, but it would not make you competent to do this work because you're not a snagging practitioner. So this is only relevant, where you are competent. You must only work within your competency, and our code of conduct says you must only work within your competency as well. And you must use the standard pre-completion inspection checklist, which we were going to look at. So just to sort of reiterate that point, because it's very, very important, that you must be a part of a recognized professional association. And that is why RPSA created the technical membership level. Now, at the present time, I know of no other way whereby somebody who is a snagging practitioner who has got level 3 or level 4 qualification and is not eligible to join another professional association, I know of no other way whereby they will be able to work once all this kicks in, because it very clearly says you've got to be part of a recognized professional association. So at the moment, I think that it is only RPSA that offers that opportunity to many people. Now, of course, if you are already a full member of RPSA or RICS, then you'll be able to do this. And I don't know what RICS are doing about this, if they're creating standards or anything, I don't know. But at the moment, for those that aren't able to join as full members of RPSA or RICS or something, then RPSA represents the only way through. You must hold PI. Certainly at RPSA, we are working. I was having a meeting with insurers this morning about creating a PI scheme for snagging practitioners, specifically for snagging practitioners. So that will be available. You must follow the standard pre-completion inspection protocol, and that document is not available to the general public. So from RPSA's point of view, it is only available to members on our member area of our website. You must work within your competency. Now, that's the list I was talking about that we came up with when we were going through the technical work group stage. And we felt, well, anybody who was a member of one of those organizations working within their competency would be able to do a pre-completion inspection. Having said all that, I'll repeat again, the only ones that are referenced within the developer guidance that is presented by the New Homes Quality Board are RICS and RPSA. Now, what are the main changes from the builder's point of view? What's going to really, really affect them? Well, this period of between notice to complete and legal completion, where we expect it to be up to 14 days. And this is really fundamental to the whole process, in that we've got this 2-week period during which the snagging process, our pre-completion inspection, can happen. And the developer must provide an opportunity for the customer and to visit the home or appoint a qualified inspector. And so they must make the customer aware that they can go and get a pre-completion inspection. Now, talking to a colleague this morning who actually went through this session we're doing today, he did it on Tuesday. He was talking to a builder at his club this morning, at his gym, and the builder said, "Oh, I'd rather get it done myself. I'd rather get this all done and get it done on behalf of the customer, because it's great for us." So I think that the builders are going to be keen to tell people about this. As the snagging inspector must be accredited, insured, and competent, and all buyers must be advised of the opportunity for a pre-completion inspection. And the whole thing must be completed only on a complete new home. So we've got to go into a home that is finished. It's not a building site. It's not, well, it might be part of a building site, but it's a finished home. It's all plastered, finished. All the white goods are in, all the power's on, heating's on, all the rest of it. Now, what is the pre-completion inspection checklist? What is it that we are actually going to be doing when we go on site? Now, the first thing I'll say, this document, as I said, is not publicly available. It is not being made available to the public. It says on the front, it's guidance for suitably qualified inspectors only. And it isn't available in Wales. we've put it on our member section. So if you're a member of RPSA, go onto the website, go to the member login, go to useful documents, and you will find both versions. You'll see this one says house. There's an apartments one as well. And those are available to RPSA members, but we're not making them publicly available. So this is the pre-completion inspection checklist. This is the PDF version, but you can do it on, it can be digitized, as we'll see. I know that the next things I'm going to say in the next 30 seconds will invoke howls of protest. And all I'll say to you is this is what it is. It's not at this point a discussion document. It is what it is. It is in place. It is a done deal, because it does not include any reference to building regulations. It does not involve any thermography, use of a thermal imaging camera. It does not involve use of a boroscope. It does not involve any structural inspection. And the reason is that, as I said to you, there's 5 other parts of the Building Safety Bill which address building regulations. It is not for us to police building regulations. It is for others to do that, and that is that is what is being dealt with by the Building Safety Bill. What we are doing is a much simpler thing. We had, believe me, we had a very wide stakeholder group across the industry. We discussed all of these things at very great length, and we came to a conclusion. And the conclusion was none of these things are included. And I know some of you will say this is outrageous, but it is what it is. Now, as I said earlier, we're at a starting point with this code. And I think that in time, it might be that something is developed, else is developed, who knows? But it will be at least a couple of years before that happens, because we've got to bed all this in first of all. So if you're looking to do a building regs inspection, this is not it. And they do not have to allow you on site to do an inspection, anything other than the pre-completion inspection that we're talking about. And I know there will be howls of protest. To be clear, it is a non-invasive visual inspection. There is no investigation, I'll repeat it, no investigation of building regulation matters. And it only references what the customer will see, touch and use on day one in the property. So literally imagine yourself, you move in, you put your case down on the floor and you look around. What do you see? There is no provision currently for a level 2 version. There may be in time, once we've got some, a bit of mileage under it, and we can see where the issues are, if there are issues that need to be addressed. We do not follow a trail of suspicion. This is simply, you look, you see something, you report that, you move on. You're not investigating in any respect. The pre-completion inspection checklist is very, very clear about what we do. It says the guidance is intended to inform a suitably qualified inspector in providing the checklist. The inspection should be carried out and recorded in line with a template pre-completion inspection checklist. But as I said, you can reproduce the checklist in electronic format. So this is, we've got a PDF on our website in the member section. It is a PDF, but you can produce a digital version, as we are doing. I'm probably running a few minutes late, and I apologize if we're running a bit late, but I think this is quite important stuff that we've got to cover. The principle of the inspection is, if it doesn't look right, it isn't right. If you look at the gable and the bricks on the top half, or the mortar on the top half is a different color to the bottom half because they use a different day mix, or they use a different batch of bricks, then it ain't right. It's simple as that. If it doesn't look right, and it's your judgment. And that's why it's so important that only a professional does this, because you can make that subjective judgment. You've seen enough houses, you know what doesn't look right, whereas the average consumer doesn't know that. They can't make that judgment. And so, that's the principle we work on. But it also tells us how we do our inspection. So external walls should be inspected in daylight from a minimum distance of 10 meters. So you can't do this at 4 o'clock in January in the afternoon. It'll be dark. You won't be able to do it. Internal. Now, if any of you are familiar with NHBC finishing standards, chapter 9.1, you'll recognize this, because that's pretty much the benchmark. And that was really where we benchmark things. But it tells you that internal walls and ceilings should be, viewed from 2 meters in natural daylight or with a single light source. And we would note in our site notes if it wasn't complying with that. and if you're a member of RPSA, as I say, you can go onto the member login area, go useful documents, download these, and you can read it at your leisure. It's really simple. You know, open the loft hatch, pull down the ladder. Does it all work normally? Is the felt level and even? Is the ducting properly fitted and connected? It's all the stuff we see over and over again. This is not rocket science. It's really easy for you to do. And it lends itself to doing on a tablet or a phone or something like that with an app. So, you know, it's really straightforward stuff. And you just take a photo of the issue, the defect, and make a note of it and move on to the next one. Now, it's the stuff that people are going to use on day one. So we fill the bath, you know, and we've got to fill the bath up to overflow, and then we can let it go. And is it, you know, pull the plug out? Is there any gurgling? We can check the drains. You know, plugs and chains operate normally. We check the sockets with a socket tester because it's not unknown for sockets not to have been connected up. So yeah, I mean, Les says felt should sag slightly. Well, fine. You know what looks right, Les. You know, so you know, if it doesn't look right, it's not right. If it does look right, it's right. It's really simple. You know, so you know, it's straightforward. And then, you know, we put the dishwasher on. So we walk into the house, we switch the dishwasher on, and while we're doing other things, and the washing machine, and we run a cycle through, because that's and if they don't work, if they've forgotten to take out the transit straps, and the washing machine destroys itself, well, I'm sorry, the builder's got to change it, isn't he? So, you know, he should have put it right, and that's what we're going to spot. And there's a really simple list. I mean, that's the sort of paper version, but as I say, we'll all do it on an iPad or something anyway. Now, it's, as you say, it's a very simple, straightforward inspection that we're doing, but it's all those things that the buyer's going to see, touch, and use on day one in the property. Who's going to pay and how much? We don't know the answer to these questions as yet. They are still to be decided, but you know, I mean, the experience that we've had so far talking to builders is that actually they're really quite keen, and there's nothing to stop the builder paying for this on behalf of the buyer. You know, provided the buyer has the choice. But if the builder says, "Look, I'm happy to pay for it," and we work with Les, you know, because we know Les, and are you happy? You know, he's a member of the RPSA because they're the professional organisation, you know, and so he's kosher, and we're happy with him, you know, and we'll pay. So, you know, why not? There's no conflicts of interest there. But you know, but we don't know yet. We don't know the answers to these questions yet. Excuse me 1 second. That's right. We don't know the answers to these questions yet, but we will find out in due course. So what's next? What's next? Well, it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, this, I know. So the RPSA, now we operate our technical and full membership. So if you are somebody who doesn't have the qualification for full membership, but you have got a level 3, level 4 qualification in related discipline, then you can join as a technical member and you'll be fine to carry on working. Now, I saw a question earlier on about the RICS is also yeah. So ASSOT RICS is membership of is full membership of RPSA. Yes, so ASSOT RICS would give you full membership of RPSA. But to make the point is that the RICS home survey standards are not applicable here, because you're not doing a survey to the RICS standards there. I don't think, the same as the RPSA survey inspection reporting standards are not applicable. So I don't know what RICS are doing, if they're creating new standards, but we have, certainly RPSA has created our new build inspection reporting standards. Again, for members, you can download those on the useful documents section of the website. But we've created the new build inspection reporting standards, which means you are working to those standards, which means from a PI point of view, you are fully covered and everything. I'm not sure if you're RICS whether that would be relevant working to home survey standards. But let's look at the market. Now, it's very difficult to get a really accurate gauge, but currently, from what the best estimates we can get, the current uptake of snagging surveys is in the region of 1 to 3, 1 to 5%. It's minimal. It really is minimal, the number of people who have a snagging survey. I think things are going to change significantly. I think that we are going to fairly quickly get to perhaps 30 to 40% of buyers having a snagging inspection, because I think the builders are going to buy into this big time. Now, what does that mean in numbers? Well, if we look at completions over the last few years, 2017-18, we had 161,000 completions. 18-19, 170, 175. Obviously a bit lower in 2021, but in 21-22, we're looking at around about possibly 240,000 completions. Big jump. Now, that could mean that we are looking at somewhere in the region of 40, 50, 60,000 snagging inspections. These are pretty significant numbers. And, you know, what's being done at the moment by the industry is tiny in comparison to what the potential here is for growth in this market. So I think that, you know, whilst I fully accept that some of you will say it's outrageous that there's no consideration of building regulations, you know, hopefully we compensate it by saying, well, there's going to be a lot more work. What RPSA does is to offer that one-stop service. So if you're not currently accredited, you're not part of a professional association, well, we offer that opportunity for membership. If you don't have any qualifications at all, but you are a snagging practitioner, then we will be creating an experienced practitioner's route to technical membership. It doesn't exist at the moment. It will exist over the coming few months, but we've got to put it together and so on. So that will happen if you're not already a member. We will have PI, you know, so we're already talking about PI. We will be doing more CPD on how to do all this and so on in due course. We've got terms, conditions, complaints handling process, code of conduct, policies for, you know, GDPR, for health and safety, for ethnicity, diversity, and inclusivity. We've got a property ombudsman scheme, which will include snagging practitioners as well. So all of this stuff is already dealt with. We've got it all. You're ready to go on day one. We've got survey standards, we've got guidance, and through associated company Skyline Surveyors, and I am a director of Skyline. So, but Skyline was created to meet the needs of RPSA, and there are other software providers, and there are software providers with apps for doing snagging inspections, which I'm sure they will adapt to be relevant. But through RPSA, through our connections with Skyline, we will be offering an app and software and everything as well. So that will all be there. And then we have our panel, and we will be selling snagging surveys through our panel as well. And, you know, we're already talking to people about how we generate business and so on. There's going to be lots of business for everybody here. You know, we're not going to be competing. Trust me, it might take a little while just to kick in, but it is going to be a lot going on. So just to remind you of membership grades and so on, I'm conscious of time, so I'm rushing through, but, you know, if you're a member of CABE, CIB, RICS, and if that's ASSOC RICS, then you can join RPSA at full membership level. If you're a technical member, MVQ level 3 related discipline or APEL. There is an APEL route as well for full membership. So if you're already doing building surveys but not a member of those organizations, there is an experienced practitioner route. Student for free. But yes, full technical membership, £180 a year, and you get all the benefits we've spoken about. They all get put in. So the last thing to say is thank you very much for listening. I hope you found that useful. I will go through all the questions now. I'll go through the chat if you've got any other questions. So if you have any private questions you wanted, chairman@rpsa.org.uk, please feel free to email me. Now, pick up your telephone, please. Go to the camera and just point it at that barcode, that QR code. And what you can then do is make a small donation. Because we gave you this for free, you can make a small donation, even if it's only £5 or £10, to my 2 in 2 at 65 challenge. What is 2 in 2 at 65? I'm running 2 marathons in 2 weeks at the age of 65. I must be mad. But I'm doing the London Marathon on the 2nd of October. I'm doing the Amsterdam Marathon on the 16th of October. And yes, I am 65. I know you thought I was older, yeah, and I'm running on behalf of NCT. And if anybody here either has children or is a child of parents, and I'm sure most of us are a child of some parents at some point, or the child of a test tube or whatever. But what NCT does is they support parents during the first 1,000 days of having a child, and that helps an awful lot of families who perhaps are less privileged. And, you know, over the next few months, with the cost of living increases we're seeing, there's going to be a lot of families who are really struggling. And what NCT will help look after the kids. So just point your camera at that, click the QR code, and you can make a donation. As I say, you're welcome to donate hundreds, but even £10 would be very nice. So thank you very much.